Welcome to the Story Fulfilled podcast, where we deep dive into how each character and story in the Bible comes together to fulfill the story of God.
I'm Abby.
I'm Fletcher.
And I'm Jay.
And today's story is about Bezalel, Oholiab, and the women skilled in sewing.
So, question.
We're back. I'm just joking. It's like episode 4. We're not back for another season. Sorry, keep going. We're back. Season 3. No, I'm just
trying to figure out what just happened.
Yeah, got excited for some reason.
Fletcher's buying a car.
Fletcher is buying.
He's a little brain fogged right now.
Yeah, I'm all distracted.
Okay, we got to bring this back to center, guys. And the way that we're going to do that is I have a question.
Oh.
Okay.
I know it's not something that we normally do. Just kidding. It's something that we do every single episode.
We got to trick the new listeners.
That's right.
We never do this.
So in today's episode, we're talking about a lot of random skills that are coming together to for the construction of the tabernacle. I don't want to give too much away, but a lot of random skills that come into play in today's episode. And so my question for you is, what is a random skill that you have?
Who's gonna go first? Fletcher, I feel like
I'll go first. There's no chance of you stealing it because I don't think either of you can do it.
Same with mine.
I can catch anything in my mouth that is thrown at me. I hope it's food. I've done non-food items in the past. They're not as fun.
There's a basketball downstairs.
Mouth-sized
Mouth-sized,
food
okay.
objects I can
Okay.
catch in my mouth when they're thrown. I had a TikTok for a bit. I had like over 1,000 followers.
It was pretty
just of
good.
people watching me catch stuff in my mouth.
Oh, it was
Marshmallows
awesome.
and grapes are usually my favorite, but
I
I've
feel
caught
like
chicken
I need
nuggets.
to find that channel. And
I will put it in the
consume.
show notes of this episode,
Okay.
and you guys can go watch Fletcher catch things in his
my
mouth.
mouth.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think you showed me the treadmill one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was a lot of fun.
That's a
Yeah.
classic.
I was running on a treadmill catching marshmallows.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one where you're like
The treadmill was
Oh,
shooting them into your face.
right.
Yeah, like-
yeah, the little goldfish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, check it out. Abby, I guess
Yeah.
Abby's going to
I'll
post
link
it.
it into the show
With
notes.
my
so you
shame.
can all- It's
That-
called What This Mouth Do.
What
Yes, it is.
this mouth do? Wow.
It was a lot of fun to do, but
He
it's a
discovered
lot of work to make TikToks.
to be an
and-
influencer,
yeah,
eh?
You got to be an influencer, yeah.
Okay, so your TikTok was What This Mouth Do. That kind of relates to my special skill, What This Ear Do. So
check out Jay's TikTok channel.
it would be a pretty small TikTok channel because there'd probably just be the one video. But with my ear, I can make this noise, which I just did with my ear. So we'll do it one more time. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
It's a
It just
popping
sounds-
sound.
It's
If
a
it
popping
sounds
sound.
weird
It
on the...
sounds like when people crack their bones. That's what it sounds
It's
like.
kind of what it sounds.
And
Very
actually,
aggressive.
I'm not the only person that can do this. I learned that I could do this because a friend of mine, when I was like 14, he did it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I got to do that. I got to figure out how to
Did
do
he
it.
teach you?
Well, I practiced a little bit, and then
Okay.
I got it. I can only really do it on the left side, not so much on the
You got
right
weird
side.
gaps in your
Yeah.
right ear that doesn't fit.
We will also make a little video that you can watch.
Jay's
Jay
TikTok
doing
is just him popping his ear every day.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
it.
Yeah.
Go and wake up your kids, pop the
That's
ear.
right. That's right.
That'd be
With a
freaky.
megaphone.
Oh my gosh. So weird. I don't have any like physical special skills
Oh.
like you guys do. I can't do things like that. I'm not very special in that way.
You can say that again.
Thanks, Fletcher. But one thing that drives my husband crazy, and I think it's kind of a special skill, is the fact that like I can pretty much put a song to any word you say. Like when you're in a conversation, I just can start singing with any, like a riff off, but when you're not paying attention. So it's like me constantly riffing off with people without them knowing.
Okay.
Your
So-
dad does that all the time too.
Yeah, except that he makes up the lyrics
Yeah,
to this.
you do actual songs.
I do
whereas
like
he
actual
just makes
ones,
up
yeah.
songs.
Like,
Okay, so
yeah,
like you'll
don't
take
test
something,
me on this.
You'll take something that someone says.
Yeah, and I'll
and
just
take an
And you'll be like,
existing
oh, that
song.
sounds like a song.
Yeah.
And you'll,
I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
and you'll
so-
just continue the line from that
Yeah.
song. It's
for
pretty
like
cool.
a while my Josh he couldn't say the word astonishing because there's this song from the musical Little Women that's called Astonishing, and I would sing it every single time he said, oh, that's astonishing, and I was like, astonishing. Anyways, yeah, so it was wonderful, and so he just doesn't say that word anymore.
Okay.
Very
So
fun.
yeah, that's
That's
my
a good skill to have.
Yeah,
Annoying
it's
people
really
with your songs.
I am a real life musical.
Is it only musical songs? Like
No. I
from
can
musical
lots
theater?
of Taylor Swift
Okay,
too,
fair enough. All right.
and other things,
T-Swizzle up in
other ones too. But
Abby's Hizzle.
yeah,
All right. So as usual, we encourage you to read the story that we're going to be talking about yourselves to get the whole picture of what's going on. And today's story takes place in Exodus towards the end. I think it's like chapters 29 all the way through.
yeah, because there's a couple. Obviously, there's 3 characters in this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they kind of go through different things.
So history-wise, I think what we've uncovered is that we are not going to jump around very much in this season, or at
It's
least
just
At
Exodus.
least
we
up
have
to now.
just Exodus for now. So we're just planting ourselves in Exodus. Last 2 weeks, if you've paid attention to what the history is in the last 2 weeks, we're still there.
Yeah.
Israelites are still in the wilderness. Moses, at this point, is talking to God on the mountain, Mount Sinai, and that's what's happening.
There we go.
Very exciting.
This week is our exit from Exodus.
It is. Is it our last week?
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Next week, no more Exodus.
At least for this season.
Oh,
Who
Well,
knows?
I'm sure we'll be back.
You mean, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll find our way back into
Yeah, I mean, we still haven't talked about Moses, so.
Right.
All right, well, geography. So, again, these stories cover a couple different people, and because this actually focused more on their skills rather than an actual story, this geography is not as important. So, the tabernacle was obviously the dwelling place of God during Israel's nomadic period. So, this story takes place somewhere during Israel's desert wanderings, which we know were sometime between Egypt and Canaan, and which is modern-day Jordan/Israel area. We have talked about this many times in previous episodes, so I'm just going to stick a map of the desert wanderings in the show notes, and you can go check that out. Moses received his instructions while, on how to build a tabernacle while he was on Mount Sinai, which, again, we're not 100% sure where that is, but it's probably in the south of the Sinai Peninsula in modern-day Egypt.
Right. That's what's
Egypt.
going on.
Yes.
Again, if you listen to the rest of the season, you'll hear a lot more varied history because we've been trying to tell the same history and geography for the last couple of weeks. So if you really want to get a detailed picture of what's going on, listen to the last 2 episodes. Lots of history and geography there. So today's story it's not really a story. It is a story-ish,
Yeah.
but it's a whole
It's
bunch
more
of
like
things are going
character
on.
development.
It's an unfolding
Yeah.
of Israel's history. So Moses is talking to God. He's the person that is getting all the instructions from God. He's getting the law. He's getting the 10 Commandments. He's getting all aspects of life of what Israel is supposed to do. These sacrifices, their behavior, their justice system. And then
How cool is that?
I
First
know,
of all,
you
right?
get all the laws laid out.
and personally, it's just you and God.
Yeah.
Boom.
But also, a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
And all he had was a stone tablet, you guys.
Right.
He doesn't have his
that?
laptop to
Slow
take
down, God.
notes.
Slow
Yeah.
down.
I got to harden this clay first.
Yeah.
So he's getting all these instructions, and then he says something really cool to Moses. He says, I will dwell among the Israelites and be their God. They will know that I am their God who brought them out of Egypt to dwell with them. And that's in Exodus chapter 29. And he says that, and you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? Where's he going to live? What's he going to... God? He's not a physical being, right? That's not what he is. So we think, okay, that's nice. And we picture it kind of how it is today. Jesus is in our hearts. God's in our hearts. But that's not what he meant.
Right.
He meant he was going to dwell
Literally.
with them physically on earth. What does God's house look like? That's the question that it comes up. And then you see a couple chapters later, God gives really specific instructions on how to build his tabernacle.
Right.
And the word tabernacle means to dwell with, to live with, to be with.
Does
And-
it? I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's what actually tabernacle means.
See, I grew up with French family, and that's not what it means in French.
No,
It's quite the swear.
Yeah.
kinda different.
So I like that meaning a lot better.
Yeah,
Thanks for
to
that,
dwell
Fletcher.
with,
Now I
yeah.
can think about that instead.
So yeah, God gives Moses these really detailed instructions of what the tabernacle is going to look like. And the tabernacle is this tent that they're going to set up in the middle of their settlement.
Right.
And they're called cubits is what the measurement they use is. And they're like this many cubits by this many cubits by this many cubits, this much wood, this much gold, this much silver. And he gave them specific instructions on how to build it. And there was a fenced in area with a building that was covered by layers of skin and coverings and curtains. I couldn't think of the word curtain. I
Right,
wanted to
right,
say
right.
carpets for some reason, but no, curtains. And the whole framing was made of acacia wood. So there's two problems. They've just come out of the desert. They're not exactly a wealthy people. So they're not going to have all this stuff necessarily ready
Right.
to go. And who's going to make it? So that's the two questions. Where are they going to get it, and who's going to make it?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think what's really cool, it doesn't seem all that cool when you're reading it necessarily.
It's true.
All of the detail, like, and I think it just speaks of like God pays attention to the details. The
Absolutely.
details matter, and so we see this in his giving of instructions on building the tabernacle. And I think there's an application for us as we live our lives, as we try and live as Christians. The details matter, like how we go about our daily life is very important. It's important to God, and it's important to us. And so I think
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Which sometimes knowing and having that understanding, you can read a difficult to read text and maybe feel a little bit better about reading it, or
Because it is long. It's about 4 chapters long of literally just specifics and measurements of this tabernacle that God was going to live in. So I was reading it today, and I'm like, oh, this is hard to read. It's this many feet and this many inches, and this is how it's like, oh. And they're going to set the wood at this angle and put it together like this, and 50 latches, and it's like, oh, my goodness. So who's going to do it, and what are they going to make it of?
right.
I thought of a really fun game.
Yeah.
We should play with the youth. We should play Let's Build a Tabernacle.
Build
And just
All
give
the
them Exodus
exact-
30.
yeah.
Give them
Whoever
the
gets
chapters
the
to read, and
closest.
they get the closest.
And then we'll
to
compare with a
scale.
picture.
That-
That would be funny. That'd be
We can
really
build
funny.
it in the church parking lot.
It takes a whole month.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys, you're not allowed to steal anything.
That's
No,
right.
Right. So speaking of stealing, how are they going to get the stuff?
That's right.
And God said, tell the people, if they feel compelled to give what they have, give their gold, give their silver, their jewelry, and their valuables. If they're willing to do that, have them give it and donate it for the building. And they ended up with more material than they actually needed for the entire tabernacle, just from people donating. So it wasn't like, Moses had to go and instill a tax to take the people's money, or go out and steal precious gold and silver and jewels from another country.
Right.
All that they needed for that tabernacle was donated by their own people.
Can I just do like a little clap on the back for Israelites right here? Because there's a lot of stuff in the desert wanderings where we're like, okay, buddy, why
You
are
got
you
that wrong.
constantly
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah.
But this is
Well,
a good
even like
moment
one
for
chapter
them.
before this, they're building the golden calf.
Right.
Yeah, so this is a good moment for them. So good job, Israel.
Which they donated their gold
Well,
for
there you go.
as
They
well,
melted
but
down the
that
calf
was a
and
bad
built it.
donation.
That's
There
good.
we go.
Yeah,
so
that's a good thing.
I'm just highlighting them this
Yeah.
time.
And
good job.
the
Way to
second
go,
part
guys.
of the question that I've been asking is who's going to build this? Are there skilled people? And it actually says that the Spirit of the Lord came upon a man named Bezalel, and he was gifted in the gifts of intelligence and knowledge on craftsmanship and art. And he was actually given those abilities and those talents to build the tabernacle.
Yeah.
So him, and then another man named Oholiab, who was an engraver of stones and that kind of thing.
Right.
So he was the kind of second in command. And then they asked anybody of the people of Israel to come help and use their skills of craftsmanship and artisanness, something like that, to use their gifts and abilities that they have to build
Artisanal abilities.
artisanal ability. That's beautiful. And then there's a specific is the women who are gifted in sewing.
Yeah.
So they got these threads made of purple and silver. I guess what they use, wool,
Yarn,
yarn,
yeah.
Whatever.
And purple and blue are like really expensive dyes, so that's what they were using. And they were women gifted in sewing, and they sewed these curtains. So
Purple also, as we've mentioned, like things that carry significance throughout. So because of the cost of the purple dyes, purple signifies royalty and is often reserved for royalty, and so that places God on a throne.
Yeah.
They're
giving their best. It's not like they're putting this junk together to make a tabernacle for God. So you can read it for yourselves. It's Exodus 29 to about 39. And we'll put a picture of the tabernacle in the show notes so you can see what it actually looked like. It's hard to paint a picture with me just talking here saying it's really specific. Look, guys, this is what it looked like. So we'll put in a picture. And so those are the people that actually built this tabernacle for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think? What's going on?
Well, and one thing that I love about this is Bezalel.
His name, because his name's pretty cool.
The name is cool. I love that as well. But what I love about it is it's so like, and you highlighted, he was a jack of all trades, which means like he wasn't actually particularly skilled in any one area. So he didn't have this. He couldn't pop his ear, like, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
he couldn't.
he didn't have this specific skill. But the text talks about him being filled by the Spirit. And so by the empowering of the Holy Spirit, he was able to do everything that was set before him. And I just love that, because that's like, as we are called into the work of the kingdom, it's again, like, it's by the filling of his Spirit, and he gives us the ability to do the things that he's set before us.
Well, that's the cool thing, is that in the Old Testament, you don't hear about people being indwelt with the Spirit that often, right? You hear it with Bezalel. You hear it with a guy named Samson.
Right.
He's
Throughout the
indwelled with
Judges a few
strength.
times,
Through the
yeah.
Judges a few times. King David was indwelled with a kingly spirit. So was King Saul. It doesn't happen that often to people. It's not just everybody gets an option to be indwelled with the Spirit.
Yeah.
And then picture nowadays, after Jesus, we are all able to be indwelt with the Spirit of the Lord.
Right. Which, and we tie into in Philippians 4:13, which talks about, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, that's not saying that you can be an astronaut because whatever, but the being able to operate in the different circumstances that have been set before you are only capable because of the indwelling Spirit of Jesus.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, being able to step into what's been placed before them, as far as this is your ministry, or this is what I'm calling you to, by the power of the Spirit, which is so cool.
Well, and speaking of callings, these people that were like Bezalel and Oholiab, they weren't leaders, they weren't prophets, they weren't great warriors, right? They're nobody special. They were artists, right? They were craftsmen, they were workers, and God called them and indwelled them to use those talents that He was given,
right?
To use the talents that He had given them. Excuse me.
And you don't really hear about them ever again after this. Like
they're not main characters, is what we're saying, right? That's why they're helpers, but yeah, you don't hear of them again, but they were the ones that built it, and God used them.
And they were honored in that.
Yeah.
And they could have very easily been under the impression that, you know, we are not Moses and Aaron. This isn't our job. Like, we're not, like, this isn't for the religious work of the tabernacle. Like, that should be them. But they recognized that they were given the ability to do the work, and they did it, which is really cool. And the same with the women who were skilled in sewing, which what a
that is not something I would get chosen for.
And no names given, not specific people, so we don't.
Maybe
know.
there's too many. There's like 100 of them that are just sewing these curtains. But
yeah. All right.
They were called out as a group, at least, right? They were mentioned.
Which is neat. All right. Well, that I guess will lead us to our final question. So how does how do these characters, Bezalel, Oholiab, and the women skilled in sewing, share and fulfill the story of God throughout the rest of the Bible?
Yeah, and I would add all of Israel in their giving of materials in that as well.
That would be a really long title for YouTube. So
that's right.
We'll stick with Bez, Oholiab.
And I think that's a key way that it fits into the story, is that we are called to give of what we've been given for the work of the Lord. And so we don't hold our talents tightly. We don't hold our resources tightly. We don't hold our time tightly. We submit it to the Lord and ask Him, how will you ask me to use these things? And we make ourselves available. We hold these things with open hands and allow Him to use them. And then we get to just celebrate what He does with them. And, you know, in this instance, they were able to celebrate in seeing the way that the tabernacle was now the dwelling place of God. And then later on, we see it like in the actual temple as well, a similar situation. So, I think it's a great reminder to not hold what we have tightly.
going on that, I was talking to my wife about this episode, and we were talking about how they willingly gave to it. And she's like, well, that's how tithing is supposed to work at the church. It's not give us your money, or, you're not going to be a part of the church. You're not going to have to buy your pew to stay, right? You want to be willing to give, and that's exactly what you've just been pointing out, is be loose with your money, be loose with your talents, be ready to give willingly, not because you have to.
Right.
And that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And then there's all this symbolism. So we've talked about a little bit of the characters, but the symbolism of the tabernacle, that is way more than I am willing to talk about. It's a very, very
special episode with Rob
we
Webb.
might need a tabernacle episode.
A tabernacle episode, because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
But the kind of quick summary of that is that the tabernacle is kind of an image of Jesus, in the way that God is dwelling with the Israelites, and then eventually Jesus comes and he dwells with us.
Yeah.
And then when Jesus died, the tabernacle, the curtain actually split.
Yeah.
And that was kind of an idea. The idea is that God is now able to dwell in us. He's not separate from us.
Right.
He's able to dwell with us like he did with the Israelites.
Right. And yeah, because with the tabernacle, there's like this geographic specificity as to where God is.
Yeah.
And even with Jesus walking on the earth, Jesus can only be where he is when he is there. And now, by way of the indwelling Holy Spirit, God's presence is worldwide within believers.
Well, that's what, like, when it was just the Israelites, it was easy to get to the tabernacle. You were all living there.
Right.
And then as time went on, you even see in really early BC really late BC and really early AD is that all the Jews were going to Jerusalem to see the temple, to do all their rituals and their ceremonies beforehand.
Right.
You can't do that on a worldly scale, and that's really cool, is that it's everywhere now.
Right.
It's in you. It's not located at a really specific spot.
Yeah. Well, and even by the time James is writing, he's writing to the scattered churches, so like all over, because there's a scattering then, and now there's even more scattering, and obviously the continuation of then Christians as those who are God's people, and bringing his Spirit with us. Yeah.
Well, good answer, guys.
Great. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that's all that we have for today.
Hope
Let
to
us
see
know
you.
what your special skills are.
Right.
Love
Email
to hear
us.
at story
Keep your eye out
at
for
bfmc.org.
what this year do.
What this Yes, and make sure you follow us if you don't already on our Instagram page.
Our new Instagram page.
That's
That's
right.
exciting.
Yes.
Follow us. We got some cool clips on there.
Yeah, you will see more behind the scenes footage, and who knows, we might have some more what this mouth do and what this ear do.
I sure hope not. All right. Thanks for listening.
Have
Bye
a
for
great
now.
day.